But other than that, why don't we get started? It's 5:33. Bring it to order the Economic Development Commission meeting for Wednesday, March 24th. The first item on the agenda is the Affordable Housing Plan presentation from Bill Rice. And I think Bill just mentioned he and Mike have put together some charts that kind of summarize the major points.
Yeah.
And we'll go through that deck, if you will, and then we hold our questions until the end, and then we'll just fire away when you're done with that presentation.
Okay, thanks, Bob. Thanks, everyone, for giving me the opportunity to kind of spread the word here with the Affordable Housing Plan. We only have a few slides that hit the high points of the plan. I have the plan open. I think I sent it to everyone. I know, Lori, I don't know if I had you on distribution of the plan.
I'll forward it to her if you want.
Okay. So, Mike, I'm not sure that the one I had was the final version, but it was pretty close. It was from March or February, actually. So, yeah, we might have had a couple typo corrections that we did, but nothing substantive. So let me do this. Let me share my screen. All right. And just give me a heads up if you can see the slide. Okay, thank you. So Mike kind of put these together for me. If you have anything you want to add as I go through this, please feel free to do so. I have a couple notes that I've taken kind of off script, so I may add some information as we go. But yeah, we're discussing the Simsbury Affordable Housing Plan, which was completed in March of 2021. Let me see if I can move forward here. Okay, it's important to understand that we didn't just dream up the idea of creating an affordable housing plan, although it would have been a good idea. But it is required by state statute. There's an ongoing effort to increase the quantity of affordable housing in all municipalities in Connecticut. But CGS 8-30J specifically talks about preparing an affordable housing plan that's to be updated no less than every 5 years. So this is our response to the requirement of the statute. It goes kind of hand in hand with another Connecticut general statute, which you may be familiar with, which is 8-30G, and that's the Affordable Housing Appeals Act. So what this statute says is that if a municipality does not have at least 10% of the total housing stock considered as affordable, and you see that's kind of in quotations. We'll get to the meaning of affordable in just a minute. But a developer can present an application under the Affordable Housing Appeals Act with elements of affordable housing, and more or less supersedes the zoning and subdivision regulations of the municipality. So, some people would say, well, let's get up to 10%, and then we won't be subject to this law. Yeah, okay, that's true, but that's I don't know if that's the true, the true intent of the law is to provide affordable housing. It's not like 10% is a magic number. It just happens to be what's in the legislation at this particular time. Okay, I won't spend a whole lot of time in this because I think everyone knows about it. We define it quite well in the Affordable Housing Plan. What is affordable housing? And for people who are not very close to the subject, it can be kind of vague. But it's very specific. The law or the legislation says that to be considered affordable, a home or a residence, let's call it a residence because it could apply to rental units, is that the property needs to have a deed restriction which essentially says, the price can't go up more. I don't know if there's even a cost of living adjustment that goes with it, but it limits the appreciation of the value of the home. The idea being that, the next people to buy it are also going to be of income restricted levels. So the deed has to run with the property. So deed restricted properties is one way to qualify as an affordable housing unit. Also government assistance. So if someone has a USDA or a CHFA loan, that qualifies as affordable. And also certain rental assistance programs, like Section 8. So in the affordable housing plan, and maybe I'll just, sorry, got it on my other screen. We go into an analysis of what Simsbury has, and we have a total of 9,132 households in town currently, or roughly. Okay, may not be reflective of some of the newer developments. Out of those, 432 meet the criteria for affordable housing. And when you do the math, that equates to about 4.74, 4.77, depending on what the numbers are at a particular point in time. So the intent is to get up to 10%. So we'd have to add about how many is it, Mike? I think
481 new housing units that are deemed affordable.
Right. So 481 to get to the 10%. So the commission thought that was a little, a tough hill to climb. And we said, well, let's kind of take little bits and pieces. And we finally decided that we would recommend in the affordable housing plan that the town strive to increase the number of affordable units by 1 percentage point over 5 years, which equates to 90 homes, barring any other market rate developments that may occur. So even 90 homes in 5 years. We think that that's kind of reasonable. I'll tell you, when we presented that to the public, it was. I thought I was going to get rocks thrown at me. Okay. So, housing prices, and let's kind of expand that a little bit into cost of housing, okay? Because like I mentioned a little earlier, these affordable housing units can either be purchased or rental units. But in the trick here is that for someone to let's see, the price that someone can spend, like a family, per month is related to the area median income of the Hartford, West Hartford metro area, but only a portion of it. So there's two levels. To qualify for these affordable houses, a family would have to have no more than, let's say, there's two levels, 80% of the area median income or 60% of the area median income. So if you take the area median income, multiply it by 0.8 or 0.6, that gives you a certain annual housing cost that is considered to be affordable. And that's an all-in cost, insurance, utilities, homeowner associations, etc.
Does it include property taxes?
It sure does.
Okay.
Yep, that's all in, Bob.
Bill, could you explain, you said there's two levels, the 80 and 60. So how does that, what's the difference? If you meet the 80%, which is $280,000 house value, or the 60% is 218, which is it you have to meet, or do you have to meet an average of it, or?
No, so say a family or an individual applies to purchase or rent one of these affordable housing units. If they have an income that is 60% of the area median income, they would qualify for let's say the most advantage or lowest cost units. Okay, so it affords someone with even a lower income to still potentially live in a neighborhood or an apartment or an area where where the market rates would be substantially higher. So it's a matter of qualification.
So I did the math. I think it's in some of the other proposals. So 98,000 is the median income. 80% of that means you could afford a house worth 280,000.
Yeah, that sounds right. For a family of four, yeah, it depends on the number of people in the household.
Okay, and at 60%, you could afford a house of 218. So my question is, which of those numbers, which of the housing stock do we have to provide? The 218,000 and below, or the 280,000 and below?
Either one.
Either. Okay, so we could take the highest, because I was looking at, there's another another chart someplace. We have 2,500 houses in Simsbury that are 280,000 below. So it's like 27%, almost 30% of all the housing in Simsbury would meet that, strictly on a price basis.
And just to piggyback on Bill's statement earlier, the issue is either you have residents that reside in those homes that are not receiving mortgage assistance, rental assistance, et cetera, or those units are not considered deed restricted. So although we may have 30% by numbers complies to what's deemed affordable under statute, it's not counted towards our 10%.
Okay. I just wanted to understand what you were those numbers.
Yeah, and I think there's something else that is also in play. I think, Mike, remind me correct me if I'm wrong, but in 8-30G, if an applicant comes in, and let me use the Climax Road development as an example. So that was, the application was submitted under the Affordable Appeals Act. Ultimately, they were approved for 19 homes, Mike, is that right? 19.
That's correct.
And six or what's it end up being, 30%?
So six are deed restricted. 3 are deed restricted to be offered to individuals making 80% of the area median income, and 3 are offered to individuals or households making 60%. So the 80% for a 3-bedroom house, the cost would be $274,000. And then I don't have the 60%. Remember, if you bear with me, I'll pull.
Right, but I think the statute says you have, if you want to use this approach, 30% of your development a minimum of 30% must be affordable.
Correct.
And I think it says out of that 30%, 50% needs to meet the 60% income bracket. So that's where the 60 and 80 comes in.
Okay.
That's for new development.
That would be for, that would be for a development that was submitted under the Affordable Housing Appeals Act, this 8-30G. If an application was submitted for a piece of land, then it met all the subdivision requirements, there's nothing right now that says any of them have to be affordable.
Okay, but as you said, since we don't meet the state's requirements, there's nothing, a developer can come in and say, we can bypass your regulations because you don't meet it. And so it doesn't really matter what we have on the books for zoning regulations, because if we're not meeting it, the state trumps it.
Yeah, that's right.
Okay.
Yeah, within there's caveats, of course. Okay, but it's really favored. It leans in favor of the applicant. Okay, because the underlying desire is to increase the number of affordable units in a particular town.
Bill, can you restate the issue around we've got, I think 90 some odd houses currently listed in a roughly $250,000 range in the town of Simsbury. That based on the math, they would qualify as affordable housing. But you mentioned something that just because they're at that price range doesn't necessarily mean that they are counted towards affordable housing. And I've missed that issue.
Okay, so the state statute defines certain criteria that need to be met for a housing unit to be considered affordable.
Okay.
And maybe I'll just back up, and one of it is the deed restriction.
Okay.
Mike, are these other two? Are these for like the individuals or?
Those are individuals. Those are loans that are available in the USDA or Connecticut Finance Housing Authority, which basically, in order to qualify for the loans, you have to meet income requirements.
Yeah.
And so they're aimed at already at the individuals that making a household at 80%, 60%, et cetera, of the area median income.
Yeah. So Bob, I think the takeaway here is that, yeah, there are apartments, there are homes for sale, there are homes that have sold in Simsbury and continue to be sold for prices less than the calculated numbers that we went through, to figure out what someone earning 80% of the area mean could afford or someone making 60, but they don't have a deed restriction. Maybe the person buying the property is not using a USDA or a CFHA loan. Maybe there's no other government assistance involved. That they don't get counted in the affordable housing formula.
Okay. So
now, there is legislation, that's being proposed that changes the way the definition of an affordable unit would be defined.
So even though we have a number of houses that are very affordable, they don't necessarily.
Yeah, we have 3 times what we're required.
Yeah, they don't necessarily fall under this criteria. So, okay.
Yeah, and in a couple of minutes, I'll get on to how we think the town can improve the situation, and one of it is through outreach. Maybe through the realtors and to remind them, hey, you don't have to look for these affordable housing developments to find houses in these price ranges. There are already existing houses in town that are around that price range.
Right. Yeah, and So, for example, the Ensign Bickford homes on Hop Meadow, the south side of Hop Meadow, across from I think it's Simsbury Square.
Yep.
Small homes, very low cost, but they don't count towards. They're great starter homes, but they don't necessarily fall under the definition of affordable housing.
Right. Strictly by the definition.
Yep. Okay. Thanks.
So,
that was a key question I wanted to get answered. So thanks for the clarification.
Yep.
So the plan seems to be to push to get more deed restrictions, because right now, of the 432 houses that we have qualify now are only because they have CFHA loans or rental assistance. We don't have any deed restrictions. At least that's one of the charts it was in one of these.
Yeah, that data, I think it was from 2019.
Yeah. So I guess what's stopping us from really pushing to help people get CFHA, CHFA, or USDA loans, because that would automatically qualify them.
Yeah, I think that's part of the education and outreach. It's not the town's obligation to tell someone where to get their mortgage, right? But I'm very much a free market person. So this whole thing kind of grates me the wrong way. But I understand what's trying to be done. But maybe a prospective buyer just doesn't have the information that they may qualify for USDA or CFHA loan. They might not know, Right. So, like I said, that's potentially one of the ways that the Planning Commission felt that the town could help the situation.
And I may be wrong, but does the deed restriction, once you put it on there, okay, you've got that, and now that house will qualify. But I think that also means the person has to have an income that would also qualify him for the USDA loan. So it's kind of like forcing an issue that could be met either way.
I never thought about someone trying to get, a government assistance loan while qualifying for the affordable housing. They're kind of two separate things. But I guess
I think the income requirements are similar, or you can't apply for the deed restricted type housing unless your income is below a certain level. And once if that's your income level, then you would qualify for the USDA loan.
Yeah, I don't know those levels, Ron. Mike, do you happen to know if what the income levels are for qualifying for a USDA or a CFHA loan?
Well, as a CFHA, they offer one of the common things we'll see is a down payment assistance. They'll offer a loan, a zero interest loan to assist individuals. And like I said, you have to qualify based on income. I believe they use the 80% as the number. And USDA, it's similar. USDA is going by HUD's numbers. I mean, HUD's numbers really are, they're the key of all these determinations when you're talking about affordable, strictly from a statutory or regulatory perspective, not just numbers.
So is it possible that a buyer would qualify for one of the affordable housing units and say like over at Climax Road, okay, and ultimately get a USDA mortgage?
Or they could be applying for a down payment assistance loan with the FHA, which from our perspective, we get points on. Here's a deed restricted home, and potentially extra points for the fact that we have a CFHA loan out there too.
Yep.
But it's just a scoring thing with based on the statute.
Right.
So I guess my point was that it's the same family level income that you have to meet to have either one of these, either the USDA loan or the deed restricted. So by making a deed restricted house, you're saying this house can now only be sold for people with income or less. Whereas the other couple thousand houses we have in Simsbury, as long as they meet the income level, they can and get the loan from the USDA or whatever, then all that housing is available. For anyone.
Well, yeah, but think of this way, Ron. If someone qualifies for the deed restricted at 270,000, 275, whatever it is, what's preventing them from going, down the road at one of the Ensign Bickford houses and buying it for 200? They're going to qualify for the mortgage.
That's my point. Yeah.
So I'm with you. I'm not sure why. Maybe it's just the reputation the town has for being very expensive. But we debated this quite a bit in the planning commission, and to the point where, a couple of us came in with Zillow reports and saying, look, here's 15 houses for less than $270,000 for sale right now.
Right. Because one of the things I see with the deed restrictions, it's the unintended consequences that once you're in the house and say your income starts increasing and you're doing great and you like to make some improvements on it, you have no incentive to do that because you can't get the value out of it.
Yeah. And Mike, that's an interesting point you bring up. I have two comments to that. One, do people have to continue to qualify periodically, Mike? Say their income goes up and it goes over the maximum that's allowed. Do they have to move?
No.
No,
they could stay in the house. The key to the income is that they have to do reports that they're verifying, they being, let's say, whatever the entity that's identified in the affordable housing plan, that anytime a sale's occurring within that development and it's an affordable unit, that they're verifying that the household that's applying related to the purchase qualifies either 60, 80% area median income. So, I mean, I'll give a personal example. I had a friend who owned a deed restricted unit in the town of Wallingford. And when she purchased it, she qualified under New Haven County AMI 80 percentile. She later improved her life, had owned her own business, was making 3 times the salary that she was making when she first purchased the home. The only issue was when she went to resell the home, the income level for the area decreased. So the sale of that home was controlled by that income level, and she took a slight loss on the house.
Mhm.
The deed restrictions, it's the resales is the issue, because
Yep.
you got to find a qualified buyer, and you have to walk in knowing that, yeah, you could gain value in the house, but at the same time, because it's based on HUD numbers, income levels can go up as quick as they can go down. And if they go down, your price can go down.
So that was one comment. The other comment is, the deed restriction is in effect for 30 or 40 years, Mike.
30 years.
Oh, that's right there, 30 years. And I know that I've had a couple like real estate friends that I know have approached me and said, "Hey, Bill, I'm trying to put some buyers into one of these deed restricted homes, and they're having a hard time finding a lender to write the mortgage, because the lenders fear that if the borrower defaults, that they're going to be left with a property that you can't be sold at market rate." So, but I've heard that's eased a little bit, but I've heard it from at least two banks. So it's kind of another unintended consequence. Good idea. Restrict the price of the house, so someone making less than a certain amount can afford it. Okay, but you still have to find someone to write the loan.
Okay, thanks for walking us through that.
Okay, so we talked about the 30. Okay, yeah. So we talked about the 80% of area median income, and the 60%. That's an annual basis. If you divide it by 12 and then multiply it by 30%, that gives you that would be the monthly cost that family could afford. All right, we talked about where Simsbury stands, 4.47%. And to get up to the 10%, we'd have to create 481 new affordable units. I mentioned that our goal
400, or get 400, whatever units with USDA loans.
No, any of the criteria that meet the affordable housing criteria.
Okay.
Deed restricted, government assistance, and the USDA and CFHA loans. 481. So the planning commission sat back and said, "Well, that's a lot of houses." So we debated it and we said, let's go for 1%, 1 percentage point. So from 4.47 to 5.47 over 5 years, which means adding 90 affordable housing units. And this doesn't seem like a lot, right? But when you really think about it, a lot of the development that's happened in town, whether it be through 8-30G or other developments that have the affordable housing units, it's a fraction of the total number of market rate units that are also going in. So in my mind, we're just digging the hole deeper. What we need, if we really want to move the needle, is to have an appreciable number of totally affordable housing units put on the market, and not dilute it with corresponding market rate units.
The thing but I keep hearing that is, it seems like people think the only way to do that is to get new units out there that are below that rate. But like last year, we sold 168 units that were under 250,000. So if we had gotten 10 people to help them with getting USDA loans, we would have added 10 units without building a single new unit. And we have 2,500 houses in Simsbury that are under that dollar limit.
Yep.
And last year, 400 of them came up last year, or 160 of them sold last year were under that. So we constantly have new stuff coming in. That's why I'm thinking, why aren't we working on helping people to get those USDA loans or whatever, on that end, because you don't have to build any new stock for that. And there's no deed restrictions. Those people.
Yeah, we have a couple other. Yeah, we have a couple other tricks up our sleeve too to boost the number based on existing, stock. I'll get to that in just a minute. Okay, yeah. So here, how do we meet our goals? Okay, so educating prospective buyers, and I mentioned this already. Let them know that there are homes for sale that are at or below these so-called affordable housing calculated sales number. And just like Ron said, how do we get to the prospective buyers and say, hey, you don't need to buy into a new development with deed restrictions to get a property at $250,000. They exist already, throughout town. One of the other very popular ideas being floated around right now is inclusionary zoning regulations. So this would change the way the zoning laws are in town. A couple examples would be allowing or maybe say a duplex on currently a single family lot. Or somehow incentivizing a developer by increasing the density of housing on a particular parcel. So a lot of these things are being debated. The idea is that more smaller houses translates into more affordable. I don't know if that's true. Something else that we can think of is this community block development grant. Is that what that stands for, Mike?
That's correct.
And can you just give us the features of that?
It provides low interest loans for housing rehab with some income qualifications, along with now they also it just assists with individuals making 80 or less % of the 80 area median income to kind of better their housing opportunities. It's a program that was started in the 80s here in Simsbury. We had a housing rehab program for Terrafil. We have some program income, and I know that maybe I don't want to steal Maria's thunder, but we've been exploring on possibilities of restarting that program with using some of that program income. Obviously, we'd have to come up with a action plan and come up how and where do we want to use these funds. But there's not just housing rehab. Some of the goals that could meet the national objective could be down payment assistance, which is another tool that adds into ways to assist people from a housing perspective that could add into our overall percentage towards affordable housing. And the last one, Bill, I'm sorry to steal the thunder, is just, one thing that was identified in the plan, and we've heard it from when we had Ed LaMontagne back, was it last year, right before COVID?
Yep.
Talk about options over at the Housing Authority property. They were looking at an expansion years ago, but in financing issues. That's another option that's on the table, that maybe we look into ways to assist finding the organization funding to do an expansion that would add into more affordable units in town.
So in your report, you mentioned Ojakian Commons as another example of, people who live there, and my daughter lives there. So we qualified for, the special loan there and to get her in. So if we have more units like that, does that also help?
Yeah, that would help to, increase the number of so-called affordable units. Yeah.
Units. So so apartment units and housing units can be treated the same. Is that correct?
I don't know if they're exactly the same.
Okay.
Yeah, how would apartments be treated?
The key would be is the rental units, that the price has to be controlled or set.
Yeah. Okay.
The points may be a little less than like a single family home. However, there has to be a means that price is controlled. In that particular project also was financed by the Connecticut Finance Housing Authority too.
Okay. Yeah.
And believe it or not, that project, I think we said it in the plan, that was a low income development. Because that's aimed, there's individuals there that, as you probably know, that are making 10 or 20% of the area median income.
Right.
That qualify for some of the units there. So I mean, that's just a great example of a well-received project that I think people fail to connect that is affordable housing.
Yeah.
Mike, in that, what was the catalyst that made that project work?
Well, the catalyst there was the PAD regulations. The zoning commission has a regulation that allowed for multifamily housing in industrial or other commercial districts. And the property owner at he's still the property owner, Tony Giorgio, kind of put together a plan for a mixed use development with commercial out front and multifamily towards the rear of the property. And when the Reagan group saw that, wow, we can do a 48 unit development here, it was inviting to them, and they went through their process of getting state funds together. But I mean, really, the catalyst was the PAD regulations, which are still in place.
Okay, but the financial catalyst was, did you say state funding?
Yeah, well, CFHA, Connecticut Finance Housing Authority, they funded that project.
Yeah,
or partially funded the project, I should say.
and
So-
are all those units affordable or reduced rate?
It's rent controlled.
All 48?
Yes.
Right. So, there's money coming from somewhere else, or there's some benefit. Maybe the discount's not all that much. I don't know the numbers, but Mike, you mentioned someone making 10 or 20% of the area median income. If every unit was being rented to people with those means, I don't think the owner could pay the mortgage.
Well, but that's where the Connecticut Finance Housing Authority and other methods such as Section 8 come into play.
Okay. All right. So government assistance.
I mean, yeah, the Department of Housing offers all kinds of means to assist these types of developments. For example, we have another development potentially that has been they've applied for funds. It's something coming on the horizon that may be financed by the Connecticut Housing Finance Authority.
Mm-hmm.
So similar, it would be rent control. Maybe Maria, do you want to give maybe a quick overview of entitlement versus non-entitlement, and kind of discuss some of the other programs that unfortunately Simsbury can't participate in?
Right. Yeah. Thanks, Mike. I think one of the challenges we have in being a community under 50,000 in population is HUD considers us to be a non-entitlement community. So for the purposes of CDBG funds, and there's another program called Home Funds, we unfortunately are not large enough to directly receive that funding from the federal government. If we were a bit larger, we would actually have a pretty considerable amount of money coming in directly from the federal government to do some really neat projects that would, we'd be able to help support building affordable housing. We'd be able to do first-time homebuyer assistance programs. We might be able to do down payment assistance programs. We could redevelop and rehab properties. The housing rehab program is another good example. So again, it's unfortunate that we're not a larger community because there are a lot of really neat things happening in larger communities who do directly get that funding from the federal government. What happens here in Connecticut, because we are a community less than 50,000, is the CDBG monies and the HUD money, the home money, for what's called the non-entitlement communities, right, which includes us, it goes to the Department of Housing. And then they do a competitive grant application process for those funds. What, again, we sort of find challenging with sort of the direction the state has taken with those monies is outside of fixing senior centers and doing a housing rehab revolving loan program, they generally do not fund many projects. That being said, something that Mike and I have had some discussion about is it may be time for us to think about applying for an active grant for a housing rehab revolving loan program. As he mentioned, it's for folks who are lower moderate income. And the newer program, back in the 80s, a lot of times it was, as Mike mentioned, a low interest program. Now, the homeowner does not have to repay the loan until they sell the property or transfer the property. And there's no interest attached to it, which is really great for folks. And usually around $30,000 is the amount you can usually go up to. And they can use it for things that really help the structure, roofs, foundation work, energy efficient windows, a new furnace, things that really, really help somebody invest in the bones of their home and to make it, a better place to live for some time to come. So it really is just an absolutely terrific program. As Mike mentioned, we do have a little bit of program income currently left over from the program in the 1980s. So we are going to be reaching out to DOH to see if we can repurpose that money and start reloading that money out again to folks. But that is a great program. And it's something I think that Mike and I are both excited about and are looking forward to looking into it more.
Great, thanks, Maria.
Yeah, you're welcome.
One other idea that the Planning Commission came up with, which I thought was pretty neat, is that if there is a property in town that people have abandoned or are way behind on property tax, such that property went through a tax sale, that maybe the town could consider developing a policy that would require the buyer to put a deed restriction on that property. They're getting the property at a deep discount, and maybe that's just another way to add to the affordable housing stock. Just something kind of outside the box, and we don't know if it's legal. And we put it on the list to be considered.
I think
Harper does all kinds of crazy things with their properties, the tax sales. They have requirements that if you're going to build on it, you have to use a high percentage of local labor. They load it up. They almost to the point where it's questionable whether you want to buy the property. But,
right.
But they do put a lot of restrictions on anything sold through a tax.
But I think we put that in there because when the town has a tax sale, we're limited on our obviously price that we sell a property to basically the back taxes that are owed. So an example being, I think it was about a year and a half ago, 2 years ago, there was a home on County Road, very large home that sold for less than $100,000. I mean, there's properties, the Mountain, I think it was Mountain Road, Bill, if you remember that referral, 23 Mountain Road was another example that came to the Planning Commission. And actually the Planning Commission, we had a kind of healthy discussion on whether we were going to recommend that a deed restriction be placed on that home for the fact it was in Terriffill, it was a smaller home, and it made sense. But these are all creative actions that we can take, and some of them don't involve building new units.
Right, exactly.
It's working with our existing housing stock.
Okay, so I guess the last comment I'll make, and then I'll open it up to questions. At the end of the day, the Planning Commission, we're satisfied with the document we have. We believe it's a good starting point. We believe it meets the requirements and intent of the legislation that is demanding an affordable housing plan. But what we did kind of conclude was that with the current, let's say, environment, socioeconomic and diversity and integration and things like that, there may be other techniques or ideas that should be employed. So the last recommendation that the Planning Commission made was for the town to consider putting together an advisory affordable housing committee to maybe explore other ways to increase the number of affordable homes in town. Okay. Any questions?
No, you answered most of my questions, Bill. Thanks so much.
Okay. Did I answer them satisfactorily, Bob?
Let me, what I will say is, this has been enlightening to me given the amount of press this topic has gotten, not just in this community, but in the state in general.
Yep.
I have a different perspective on it now than I did before, which is extremely helpful.
Good. Yeah. Education is a key part of understanding.
Yeah. And so your notion of education and awareness, I think, is going to be important.
Yep, I hope so. Anybody else?
I know this usually at the end, but participating in or listening in on the zoning commission, I think it's relevant. We talk about it because it's similar to what you guys are doing here. This, and Mike can help me on this. I'm trying to remember. There's a new state regulation coming out, and the zoning board responded to that because the state was asking for input from local communities. But the state is attempting to even add some more onerous requirements on the zoning regulations that's coming up. I don't know if that's going to go through. I'm trying to remember. It was more related, I believe, to race percentages, but it kind of came back to, or no, it wasn't. They were just using that.
It was Senate Bill 1024.
Yeah.
It's a proposal. It's a reorg of the Zoning Enabling Act, and it has some sweeping changes, such as accessory apartments would be as of right uses up to 1,000 square feet. No longer could a town say that you have to go to a commission process. There was some talk. There's a inclusionary zoning that's added to this regs. Properties within a half mile of a train station or fast track bus station will be zoned as 4 family or more as of right multifamily housing. There was a long public hearing that abruptly ended. It's still the Planning Development Committee has not taken up this bill yet for consideration, but there were at least 6 in that committee alone bills aimed at affordable housing in Connecticut and the Zoning Enabling Act, along with in the Housing Committee, there were several bills that were also similar to that. So it's something that if you're interested in it, I would suggest to stay tuned to the General Assembly, because obviously if that bill is voted on, it will change zoning. Do I think it's going to affect Simsbury, at least from the stance of the as of right multifamily housing? No, because we're not on the fast track bus. We do not have a commuter rail running through Simsbury. So those two, I don't think will affect us, but it's just still, the zoning commission did submit, they had a special meeting and submitted testimony in opposition to the bill. So they said that they felt it was a grab at local zoning authorities. But like I said, it's still a work in progress, but stay tuned.
I just brought it up because you guys in planning have come up with a plan, and I'm kind of wondering if the state isn't going to maybe circumvent it. So some of the things you may find out you have to put in a bunch of high density, or someone can put in high density housing and you don't even have any control over it anymore.
Yeah, I suspect that some of the legislation that's being proposed was in the works while we were working on our affordable housing plan, but it's really become much more prominent in the past, let's say 6 or 8 months. So
now I'm looking at this letter. That's where I get some of that information about current housing stock. The zoning commission was saying, hey, we got a third of our housing meets affordable housing, and you guys are trying to, shift what control we have. And, it's not a problem so much of the housing stock that's here that, that got to keep adding more to it. There's certainly, if we added 10% more, we'd have 40% of our housing would be considered affordable. At what point is enough?
So let me try to bring this to closure as we got to get moving along on some other things. But going into this presentation, the thought I had was the marketing materials that I know Charmaine and Brooke are working on. One of the key elements, I would think, from an economic development perspective is as we market the town and begin to promote Simsbury is this whole notion of, diversity of housing options. Anybody looking to move into town or any business looking to move into town, wants to be able to know, quote unquote, is it affordable? So this notion of we've got plenty of affordable housing that doesn't necessarily fit the state criteria for affordable housing. But we do have a lot of homes in the $250,000 range, as well as you can go up to $1 million if you want, as well as apartments and townhomes and condominiums. So, a great diversity of housing options for anybody looking to move into this community. And I would hope that the marketing material emphasizes that and promotes that, because I think that's a real strength of the town now, given everything that's gone on over here over the past couple of years with the new development. So that was the thought or concept I had coming into this, and just wanted to kind of wrap up with that thought. We can see where it goes. Okay. All right. Moving on to the rest of the agenda. Sarah's not here from Main Street, but she did send a quick email update. She's in the process of, she's working very diligently on the marketing campaign. She's in the process of setting up 2 focus groups, one for realtors and one for hospitalities. She's also gotten permission to use amazing professional photos. And shout out to Maria for getting our designer the newest surveys and information from the town. So obviously she's hard at work at as well with the other activities to support our businesses here in town. I mentioned Morgan's on vacation this week, so I didn't get an update from her, but I will say we did have a government affairs meeting last week. Mike's presentation was extremely well received. It was one of the best attended government affairs meetings, and the feedback from everybody was very, very helpful, that they would like to get regular updates from that going forward. And we'll work on defining what regular may be. Afterwards, Melissa and I talked about how do we maybe come up with a way to combine the business outreach through this government affairs committee, very simply stating the business outreach was taking the town and going to the various businesses. The government affairs is bringing the businesses and asking for participation from the town. So why don't we just leverage that opportunity? We can bring different people from the town to present to the businesses. We can get feedback from the businesses on issues and concerns they may have. It may be a way to kind of kill 2 birds with 1 stone, if you will. So Melissa and I will continue to work with Morgan to try to flesh it out in more detail going forward. Nothing here from Sherm. I didn't see him on the call, so no update from him. Next item we have is top taxpayer update. There was a list in the packet that looked to the new top taxpayers in town. It's much larger than 11 that we were working with. And I went through it a little bit today, and I realized that there are a number of businesses no longer on there that were on there previously.
Yeah.
Dyno Nobel, Micro Semi, eBad being a couple of them. So Maria, you mentioned that we'd like to get together, maybe go back through this list and maybe reprioritize.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know we're getting a little short on time, but if I can just screen share that for a quick moment, it's just such an interesting, I think, piece of information. So let me just pull that up quickly. Okay, sorry, let me just scroll down. Okay, can everybody see that okay?
Yes.
Yeah, so what's really fascinating, and I know last time we met, I just gave a quick update on our new growth numbers. And we expanded our analysis to look back over the last 20 years. And what we found is that the grand list that we just certified in the year prior are our 2 strongest years out of the last 20 outside of a revaluation year. It was 2.93% and 2.66%. And we only hit new growth above 2% one other time in the last 20 years outside of a reval year, and that was 2.45%. Our average during that time period for non-reval years was about 0.79 to 0.85. So, think about 0.85 to, nearly 3%. it's really remarkable just the level of both commercial and residential, whether it's development or, rehabilitation of properties, that level of interest in the community is just really remarkable. But one of the things as we really started to kind of look at our top 25 taxpayer list for again, this current certified grand list is we said, wow, what's interesting is the shift on who's on that list. And so what we did is we just highlighted in yellow for you those companies that are either more recent developments or maybe more recent rehabs or expansion. So an example is Curaleaf was a new taxpayer in 2014, but then they also had quite a large expansion at a different location during 2019 and 2020. And a large chunk of their taxes are actually personal property taxes. Where what's also really interesting about the grand list is when you look, back at the last 10 years, in 2016, I believe was the grand list that we lost the Hartford property. So our commercial valuation took obviously a very hard hit during that time period. But since then, the residential development that we've seen and some of the apartments such as Aspen Green, Ridge Halkett Mountain, Highcroft, Anthology, those types of developments, it's just grown exponentially in terms of the valuation, and it's made up essentially for that lost valuation from losing the Hartford. So again, all this development we're seeing, it really is helping to take pressure off of the mill rate and our residential taxpayers. So it's a really great story to share. It's definitely changed up our list quite a bit. So I think it'd be really helpful if Bob and Tom can maybe get a short list to Mike, Melissa, and I, and Tom Fitzgerald of who you might like to visit. And then we can circulate that out to the group and ask other EDC members who might like to be present for those various meetings. And then we'll just get scheduling them and we'll get back on having some meetings with folks.
Okay, we can take a look at that.
Great, thanks.
All right. Next item. Let's go through the EDC work plan updates. Charmaine, a quick update on marketing.
Well, marketing, it's really tied up with Sarah and the focus groups and everything else as you reported before. So we're still, everything's going through and starting, and Jeff's going to be doing his work, and I don't really have anything else to report.
Okay. Will you be participating in those focus groups?
I hope to. I just got the dates tonight, so I have to check my book. So as long as I don't have a client Zoom or something like that, I'll definitely be in it.
Great. Thanks. Peter, co-working space?
Yeah, Bob, I've actually been somewhat less than engaged of late, given that I'm down here in Virginia. So I don't have really anything new to report, but I will be back in town like the middle of May, so I'll be able to get back up to speed.
Okay. Is there a good time for you, Ron, and I to talk about this, and maybe we can do some work while you're out?
Yeah, usually afternoons is best for me.
Okay. Ron, do you just want me to set up a time and see what we can do?
Yeah, if you could throw out a couple times, because my schedule varies.
Afternoons work for you?
Generally, yep.
Okay.
Just tomorrow anyways, and beginning of next week.
Okay. We'll look for something next week. Thanks. Nothing new to report on the business outreach that I haven't already mentioned. And anything else? Lori, want to do a quick update on your strategic work that you're doing?
Yeah, there hasn't been any movement on it this past month. Haven't started yet. Still in the works.
Okay. Other than you have a good plan and a good plan of action to go after it, and so we'll look in future meetings for updates. Liaison updates from zoning.
Yeah, kind of talked about it already. I guess my only comment on it was after we had all that discussion, thinking about what the economic impact of some of these things that are occurring. I guess one of my concerns is these deed restrictions, I think, have something we need to consider on the impact to the town from a standpoint that you might be creating a housing stock that's not ever, there's no reason for the people that are in it to improve it or maintain it. I just thought that could be a detriment overall. I think there's plenty of housing stock out there that meets the income requirements. Just, and I got that same kind of feedback from zoning there. I think they have the same kind of concern. You don't want to create certain housing stock that people have no incentive to improve or maintain. It kind of could change the character of the town. That's about it.
Okay. Thanks. Lori, anything on design review?
The most recent discussions at design review were around the Ensign building, the south parking lot of the Ensign building. They are working to put up some solar canopy parking structures. It'll allow some shade over parking, and that is where they would be putting up some solar panels. They're great looking, and if anybody wants to see in detail, they can take a look at the minutes from the design review meeting.
That's the Mark Scully building, the old Ensign.
Yep,
house.
and,
Yeah.
and there's
That could
there's two structures that are going to be going up.
Yeah, that'll look nice. Quick update on sustainability. The chairman for sustainability is Sherry Canlon, and she announced she's resigning her commission. And so they gave an opportunity for them to everybody kind of step back and say, what do we want to do with the Sustainability Commission? And the recommendation has been made to consolidate that with the Clean Energy Task Force and other, what I'll call, green initiatives in town, and maybe start to consolidate some of these commissions into one. That's, I think, the recommendation, but obviously for that to happen, it has to come before the town and get approval and everything. So, Maria, I'm just giving you a heads up that that's in the works. We'll see where that goes. And the development projects, we talked about the, I guess everybody, I don't know if everybody saw the article in the Hartford Current earlier this week about Canton's pushback to the electric vehicle showroom there on Route 44. So I don't know if that's going to go forward or not. That seems like it's going to get dragged out for quite some time. And Mike, we talked about a different development project for us to kind of shadow, if you will. The one being the work being done around Iron Horse Boulevard, the bar down there. Any others that come to mind?
Right now, that's probably the most urgent one coming. There's maybe in the future, you may hear something about the SL Simsbury, but the Nelson construction, I think you'll see in making its way through the regulatory process in the very near future.
Okay. So as that one starts to firm up, we can assign someone to that.
I thought we had signed Tom Earl for that.
Okay.
Because I think, Tom, you joined us at DRB, correct?
Tom had to step off.
Tom had to step out. Okay.
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't see him on my tile.
Yeah.
He was here, but then he had to unfortunately leave.
Yeah. I know that we shared the packet with him, and I believe he was on the call. So I think
Yeah.
Tom's
I know
watching.
he was on the call. Yeah. Okay. I can follow up with him. Okay. Anything else for announcements?
I passed that Wall Street Journal article around. Have people had a chance to look at it. Sounded encouraging for towns like Simsbury. One of the things, it seems that a lot of the towns were shifting their incentives more to bring people into the town instead of businesses, because the businesses didn't need to be in town. People were working from town all across the country. So
Yeah. That's what kind of triggered my thought on, as we're creating the marketing brochure, let's make sure that, we promote Simsbury as a place for people to move into that want to have a high quality of life and excellent place to live at the same time, being able to work and get their jobs done. So,
yeah, we have plenty of that.
Yep, we got plenty of that. But continue to promote the town that way. So to the extent we get the co-working space piece working there, we can help support that as well. Yeah. Okay, anything else? By the way, that was an excellent article. I really enjoyed it. Thanks for sharing that with us. Everybody get a chance to read the minutes from our last meeting?
Bob, sorry, just one other just quick item.
Okay.
Sort of relates to some of your work, but our graduate student intern, Lena, is working on a really neat project for us right now. We had somebody offer a suggestion from the community, which I thought was a great idea. And it would be really nice, they said, to have sort of almost like a welcome packet or a welcome brochure for new residents, similar to the development guide that Lori and others are going to be helping us update, but really more geared towards residents, like how do I sign up for trash service and how do I get a library card? Some of those kinds of things, right? As a new resident that you're just wondering about. So it was a great suggestion and we have her working on that. And if this group might be interested in giving some feedback, we'll probably, circulate it to you through email just to get some ideas and see if we're heading in a good direction or if you have other thoughts. That would be really appreciated.
Okay. Happy to take a look at it. Yep. All right. So last item was the minutes from February 24th. Did everybody get a chance to read through the minutes? Any changes or edits need to required? Do we have a motion to accept the minutes?
Make a motion. Second.
So round of motion to accept. We have a second. I'll second it. So everybody, all in favor of approving the minutes? Show of hands. Very good. Thank you. And with that, we're ready for adjournment. The motion to adjourn?
I don't.
I'll say okay. The meeting is adjourned.